Okay, good. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Okay, looks good. Thank you for the tweets. Okay, good. That's and let's throw webcam back in. Edit scene. Change. Go. Yeah. Making sure the extra USB cord is in as well for the Among Us. Thank you for all of those tweets that I got for my stream. I very much appreciate that. Okay. All of those USB cords are in. Good. Okay, good. Oh my, this seems dangerous. I hope this is not a flying game. If so, I'm glad it's a demo.
Conrad, I am you, or
A hologram.
They've taken parts of your memory. I don't have time to explain the details. You must get to New Washington and find Ian. He can help you. Find Ian. You're not safe.
No, wait! Oh, damn.
There we go. Okay. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Good. Okay. Okay. That's now along on that side. I see. Change screens. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now I have to go edit, delete, add scene, edit scene, add layer, webcam, add, yeah, add layer, webcam, add, change.
I hear a lot of cooking. Yeah, you see Among Us on the side. The torchlight isn't small on this thing.
Oh, we have another layer.
Where am I headed in this game?
Okay. How great you want to play Among Us on? Is the next question. Okay.
You have gained an experience.
Back the way I. Okay. Okay. Come on.
You have received a quest.
Yes, I have.
You have received a quest. Bye. Okay. Yeah. It is 50.
I know. Yeah. Huh?
Okay.
Come on. Yeah.
to this point here, I'll call it the closing conference. And I would always ask for a closing conference. I would always ask for a closing conference to be for us. Again, I would want to know what their general findings are. Did they find anything? Is there anything of concern? Is there anything we can fix immediately or change immediately? Again, don't acknowledge or admit anything, but it's best just to acknowledge that with your interpretation, I will go ahead and change this, or I will go ahead and fix that in the way you want. Always ask, did you find anything that we were out of compliance on that you felt we could do better? Summarize try to summarize, looking at your notes, any questions they had that you will have to provide documentation or documents for in the near future. They generally will say, I'm going to need to have, a formal copy of your safety plan, a formal list of all your training that's been done, your respiratory protection program, and all your fit testing. So they will ask for certain documents. And again, what type of action we should be taking, what we can expect. Remember, and again, I would always ask for that closing conference. I want this thing to close out on that given day. Now, 60% of the time, they will allow you a closing conference at that point. The other 40% of the time, they will turn around and say, you know what, we're going to hold off on the closing conference and I'll be back in a couple days. So just remember that. The other piece is, if they identify any areas that they believe a citation will be written, then we should write that down. We should document that. Just got something bugging me. They have up to 6 months to actually issue that ticket. So the process from here goes, they go back, they look through some pictures they took.
You've had the
and I want to remind you that if they take
your mom's
person should be taking pictures as well.
It's time to Squarespace.
And if you don't
know
have
anything
picture
about websites,
capability with your phones or your tablets, which I know you all do,
Squarespace.
but if you
need
don't,
site, need a
then
whole brand,
we should
social
have a
campaigns,
standalone
promotion,
camera
the whole
for
9
this.
yards. Squarespace. It's that
And
easy.
it can be a
Got an
throwaway,
idea?
those old
Squarespace.
Kodak
Use offer code
throwaway
Spotify
cameras,
for 10%
whatever
off
they
your
are.
first website.
But we should have a standalone camera or our cell phone. And if they take a picture like this, the best thing you can do is turn around, back up about 10 or 15 feet, get a wider angle, and take the same picture. And then move off about 90 degrees, 45 to 90 degrees, and take another picture of the same spot. We want some pictures from some different angles of anything they've identified as a problem, so that if it comes to the fact that they're going to write tickets, we have some evidence to show that we weren't really out of compliance. It was just their interpretation or their view they had at that moment. But they have 6 months to issue a citation and any proposed penalties. Along that line, at sometime during that 6 month, 180-day time period, if they issue a ticket, you have 15 working days or a total of 20 days to respond to it. And we'll get into that here in a second. Any questions there, guys? The CSHO, the compliance officer, will discuss apparent violations. They'll also, at the closing conference, provide you with your employer rights and responsibilities following an OSHA inspection, how you're supposed to post this, what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to let everybody know, communicate it. And then generally they will discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the employer safety and health program, what they think you should add to it, what you think you should do. And again, that's an opportunity to say that generally we just have our site-specific plan out here. We have a more robust safety and health program for a company-wide venture. But we have been very specific in our safety and health plan for this site. So it's a good idea to bring that up. And again, this isn't a time to be adversarial, to argue, to fight. It's really just a time to exchange information back and forth and to try to come to some agreement that we have and I hate this word, I hate this friggin' word, but we have a pretty safe job site. After the closing conference, the CSHO generally will write up the findings and reviews, and then they'll sit with either Bailey or Dan, meaning the Chief Compliance Officer, Bailey, or the Director of the program, Dan Whipple. And they'll sit with them and review what they found, and they'll come up with an idea of the validity of those findings. Is there a reason to write a ticket? Is there not a reason? Could we do something better? And I said this, but you got that 60-40 thing going on over there, that if we can put the best foot forward, those odds come more in our favor. And even when it starts to look like we've done a great job over here with the CSHO, it's those pictures that tend to come back and haunt us. Because Dan or Bailey are going to look at this thing in a single dimension and aren't going to get the context of everything going on. So it is very important that that second person with us document the conversations that were going on. I mean, I've had several incidents where a CSHO has said, yeah, I really don't see a problem with that, that looks pretty good. Word for word, quote, that looks pretty good. And then, a month later, we get a ticket for it because Dan saw something in a picture that he didn't feel it looked very good. So that's really important that we document those conversations and those comments. That determines the validity of those findings. That right there, those documents, those notes, those help us a great deal. They'll include the proposed penalties. I should tell you one. 60, when you start to dive into this, and you guys probably don't want to dive into this as deep as I tend to, but when you start to dive into this, 60% of the inspections out there, we generally do pretty good. The 40% we have a problem with. Now, the other side of it is that 40%, they tend to write an average of 3 tickets in Vermont. And they tend to write those tickets, when they write those tickets, 3 tickets per inspection. When they write those tickets, they initially write them for an average of $13,000. Average $13,000. Then we go to what we call an informal conference. And at that informal conference, we tend to be able to negotiate some of those away and negotiate the ones that stick down to a rough 50% of its total value. And when we look at some of the ticket data here in a few minutes, you'll see what I'm saying, but you could very easily start out with a $39,000 total ticket value and end up sitting there with $5,000 to $8,000 sitting on the table, and then you've got to make the decision, do I want to go to conference or do I just want to pay these and walk away? So again, they will propose penalties. They'll send you a certified letter containing the citations and penalties, or they'll drop them off to you and have somebody sign for them at the office. I said it's 15 working days to contest. In Vermont, it's a total of 20 days from the point you receive that citation. And it is very important that we not hide this citation. It's not going away. It is not going away. We've got to be upfront with management, and we've got to tell them we've got first thing, if you have an inspection, we should let everybody know we had an inspection. If there's possible citations, we should let them know there's possible citations. And then finally, when we receive the citations, generally they'll go right to the office, but if by chance they show up on the job site or they're dropped off on the job site, then frankly, we should make sure and get those right to the office so we can start the process of appealing those tickets immediately. You only have 20 days to actually formally appeal them. And within that 20-day period, you have an option to try to informally meet with them and conference these things. So again, there's a couple tight timelines in there that we should be addressing, and I would stress that in my world, I would go to the informal as soon as possible, bring my information that I need to justify what we were doing and how we were doing it, and try to move through that informal process. I would not be afraid of going to conference on anything we do unless you're just blatantly friggin' wrong. But I wouldn't be afraid to do that. Remember, any citations got to be posted for 3 days out there, and you've got to post your intent to contest these citations. It's always good at this point, and we probably should have done it early on, but it's always good to, at this point, to take a look at what our program is actually like. Where do we stand? And you guys should be doing, and I'll just tell you because you need to do it, you should be doing job site audits at least on a weekly basis. We all have somebody on our job site that all of a sudden it's Thursday afternoon, it's 3 o'clock, and we're trying to figure out what to do with them. I would turn around if somebody came up to me on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock and said, hey, I got another hour, I got whatever. I would say, here's an audit sheet. Why don't you go out and do an audit of our site, and let's take a look at it. That plays in very big, and not just the audit, but the corrective values within that audit. So we see that we've got a cloud of dust, and on that somebody says, you know what, we had a cloud of dust, they were wearing their masks, but the concrete saw was out of water. Well, you make a note, refilled the concrete saw, retrained that group on how to properly follow table 1, and we move on. But it is important that within this preparing for an OSHA visit, that we do at the conclusion of a compliance visit, we do take a little time and try to debrief. We do, throughout the duration of our season, do some audits and show corrective action. And that's important, that when we do these audits and we show corrective action. And just document that. Do you have, or have you done, job hazard analysis for this particular job? And I'm going to believe you have in some fashion, because you've got a site-specific safety plan that you're using to put this stuff on. So that's important. We have JHAs. And they may not be, and I'll tell you, Cecil's a good one. It may be that Cecil did this JHA in his head, and we didn't actually document it. And don't be afraid of not documenting it. As long as we have that safety plan to support what Cecil came up with in his head, then we're pretty good there. And it's supported by that audit that we're doing from time to time to actually see and confirm that we're doing things right. Again, when we start to look at our overall piece, you want to look at your weaknesses just like they're doing with their C target. Somebody within our company should be looking at what our past citations are. Where is our weaknesses and how do we address those weaknesses? So we should take time pre-inspection, pre-season to look at any past citations we've had out there, because again, that is going to influence our construction targeting, and that is going to influence their need to stop and visit us. So again, address your past citations. They're going to have them with them, or they are going to review them before they come to your site. If this is not a random inspection, they are going to have a complete file on Crumb's Corner construction, and they are going to look at each piece of that so that when they do their inspection, they're going to immediately go to those places that we had previous citations with. Review your injury and illness history. Again, that tends to show a weakness, not only a weakness, but it tends to show times of the year that we have hard times.
That's right. Each week we
So
uncover the
review
real
that
mystery behind
and
things
put
like
in
Dragon Ball
place
Z,
whatever is
Firefly,
necessary
Futurama,
to ensure the
Tony Hawk's Pro
safety of those
Skater,
people working with us.
Fullmetal Alchemist, Neopets,
I talk
Harley
about
Quinn.
workman's comp loss runs and trend reports. You should be partnering with your insurance provider. I don't care if it's NFP, if it's Adam OSHA, if it's Kitty Pike, who it is, but you should be on the phone with them at this time, today. You should be calling them and having them do a comp run for the last 2 years. And take a look at the seasonal shift in that. And by seasonal shift, there's parts of that season that tend to be more risky than other parts. It's not necessarily the risk of the job, but the risk of the time that we're actually, July, third week in July is a bad week for Crumb's Corner excavating. And that third week in July is just a bad week because it's the third week of July. We took a couple days off for 4th of July. The guys are restless. We're taking a few risks. We're trying to finish by August 1 so we can move on to another job. And that tends to show in our workman's comp runs, loss runs. So I would ask, and this is that time of year, so I can plan out what I'm doing and what my plan is going to be for the year. When is my high risk times? When do I get tickets and when do I get injuries? And I would do that. I would also, as we start to look at trends, what pieces of equipment tend to be of highest risk? I mean, do I have a high risk every time I turn around and bring out an air monitor? If I do, then I should probably put some emphasis on that air monitor. Do I have a high risk every time we get 2 excavators side by side? If I do, I should look at a different process or a different way of doing it. And is there a high risk day or a high risk time of day that I can look at and make a few adjustments to make that safer for everybody out there? Then we take a look at our program, and I'm not going to dive into this because this is math and this is way over my head, but remember that as OSHA starts to look at C targeting, incident rates are going to matter. And incident rates this year are going to be badly skewed just based on the fact that we had, over the last year because of COVID, we had smaller work teams and we had 6 or 8 weeks taken off our front side of this whole work season. So if you start to take that out, you don't have the 100,000 hours or 200,000 hours to equate back to your injuries and illnesses. So you've got less time, so it increases your total incident rate. And this is going to be a bad year. We're going to carry that piece for the next 2 or 3 years just based on our incident rate. Um, Correct efficiency when we start doing audits, and I said this earlier, but it's really important that if you're doing audits, just as well as doing the audits, there's nothing wrong with finding shit wrong in an audit. There's nothing wrong at all. As a matter of fact, that probably isn't a bad thing. What's wrong is we don't document or we don't make those corrections necessary to ensure that we fixed it. So if you're doing audits, make sure and take a moment or the time needed to adjust those faults, those things we found wrong, and strive for that continuous improvement piece. If you don't already have a safety committee, if your company doesn't already have a safety committee, and we can turn and say, yeah, I got a safety committee, we meet once a year. If you've got a safety committee and it meets once a year, you really don't have a safety committee. You should have a safety committee. You should have 1 or 2 people from management. It should have your safety officer or your safety people and 3 or 4 people from the field. And I'm not just talking the pipe layers. It may be an equipment operator, it may be a pipe layer, it may be my framer, but I would have a varied group. And I would be meeting on at least a quarterly basis. At least a quarterly basis. And if I had a safety committee and we were meeting on a quarterly basis, I would make sure and take notes of that stuff. That is the
Okay, good. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Okay, looks good.